Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Gayle Carson. Welcome to Living Regret Free, a program that shows you how to live a better and more joyful life. As an added bonus, I invite you to listen to an introduction to my Mindset Matters program, which ties into this so well. Go to www.sobmindset.com. It's free, and I know you will enjoy it. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at gaylecarson13@gmail.com or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. My guest today is Gina Gardiner. Gina introduces herself and her work with her coaching clients and her beliefs around helping people and how learning to walk twice as an adult whilst also running an award-winning school has informed her approach to living a life that is thriving and not just surviving. Welcome, Gina.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on the show. I'm really pleased to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your story and how it shaped what you do now, because you've been through a lot. So tell our listeners exactly what happened to you.
I was appointed to be the deputy principal of a large school very early on. I was still only in my late 20s, and I was appointed to be the catalyst for change. In the first couple of terms, I think you call them semesters, we were looking at how we were going to plan that. And I went off skiing. And to cut a very long story short, I had a very serious accident. We were planning to go on a gentle run, found ourselves on the Schindlergratz, the most difficult black run in St. Anton in Austria. I got back to school, but I was still not doing very well. Was really looking forward to the summer holidays. And 2 weeks into the summer holidays, I got a call from my principal's wife to say that he'd suddenly died in his sleep. And so I became the acting principal, and within 3 months, I was the principal. Now, I was very determined that the school should do well, but my health, or my mobility particularly, deteriorated. And I had 2 sets of surgery, both of which resulted in failed back surgery. And so I ran my school, for the most part, from a wheelchair. And the gift in that was that I had to develop a way of empowering my staff to do an excellent job and to take full responsibility for their own performance and shared responsibility for everybody's performance. That the approach that I developed was successful can be seen because we were on the 100 best schools in the country list twice during my tenure. Now, I'd like to think that I would have created a similar approach if I'd been fully able-bodied, but I'm honest enough to know that probably I would have interfered too much. And so the unique approach to developing personal empowerment and professional empowerment and leadership is the bedrock of the work that I do today. I left school in 2004 and started working for myself. And then I work with individuals and businesses, particularly around the issue of leadership. Because if you're going to be an enlightened leader, you have to lead yourself first. And so it's all about self-development first and then developing other people through leadership.
Well, I totally agree with you in that. So would you say that that was the biggest hurdle you've had to overcome in life, or not? And I guess the impact of that was you starting your own business.
Has it been the biggest hurdle? I would say the biggest hurdle that I think I and anyone else has to overcome in life are limiting beliefs. You know, if you believe you can't, it's a done deal. And quite early on, when I started to use a wheelchair, one of the things that I had to work on was that to recognise that being in a wheelchair didn't define who I was. That if I looked at what I could do rather than what I couldn't, I was going to achieve far more. So I'll give you an example. After I came out of hospital, having had the failed back surgery, I was completely wheelchair bound. And within 4 days, I was back at school. And people said to me, well, aren't you brave? And I thought to myself, well, I could stay at home, watch daytime television and read, not be able to make a cup of tea or coffee unless my carer had left a cup out and filled the kettle for me. Or I could go to school, do something I loved, was good at, that made a positive difference, and have people do the physical stuff I couldn't do, but my mouth worked, my brain worked, my eyes and my hands worked. And so I could go and do something really positive. And, you know, it wasn't a single decision, I don't think, but it was over time. It was the recognition that actually I'm the common denominator in my life. I could choose to be limited by what I did or not, and I chose not to be. But I think it's our beliefs about ourselves which really define whether we succeed or not.
Well, I think it's true. It's the way you think about everything. It's how you approach everything. All of that goes into making you who you are. So,
Yes.
What was the motivation behind writing your latest best-selling book, Thriving, Not Surviving? I love that. The 5 secret pathways to happiness, success, and fulfillment. But I love that thriving, not surviving, because there are so many people who are not necessarily physically disabled who are thriving and not surviving. There are very few people who are they're in a pity mode. So tell us about what was the motivation behind writing your book.
I'd already written a number of books, and the previous book to Thriving was called Chariots on Fire, which shared a little of my story and the principles that I lived by. And I wrote that very soon after leaving headship or principalship, if there is such a word. And I'd been working with clients between then and I wrote the book about 18 months, 2 years ago. And what I recognized was that, of course, my thinking had moved on. I'd continued to develop and grow. And I had a huge amount more experience with people. And what I recognized was that whichever route they came, whether it was they came for personal coaching and support or professional and leadership coaching and training, that we in some form went through the 5 pathways. Belief being the first. If you believe you can, then you open the door of possibility. And I'd like to come back and just give a personal story after I've just finished the 5 pathways. The second is relationships. Every relationship you have is a reflection of the relationship that you have with yourself. People's view of success and fear of whether they fear failure or fear success, whether they self-sabotage. How people manage change and transition, and how people find their true purpose, because in finding your purpose and your passion, then you can really find fulfillment. So whatever route they came, those 5 pathways were covered in some way. And I felt that a growing need to reach more people, because there, as you say, there are so many people who are very, very unhappy. In the UK, over half the prescriptions that are written are for antidepressants. The most common.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing.
It's scary. And the most common reason for men dying under the age of 42 is suicide. 70 billion pounds a year in the UK alone are lost days to the economy because of stress. And so I believe
it's the same thing here, Gina. We have the same thing. People miss so much work, and there's so much cost to corporations because of stress. And the same thing in terms of depression, and it's amazing. So it doesn't limit itself to a country, one or the other. I mean, it's amazing.
And that doesn't look at the cost to the individual, to the family, to the children. I think it's monumental. And for me, the big motivation in writing the book and doing my work through Genuinely You, and I'm just about to launch an Enlightened Leadership program, is that I believe if we want to make a qualitative change and do that across the board, we have to get to people who are leaders. I believe the quality of leadership is toxic around the world, and we need to do something different. And so for me, my purpose, I believe, is to support people in growing a different sort of leadership. Whether you're leading your family or your company, you have to lead yourself first. It's not do what I say and not do what I do. This is about leading with integrity, compassion, and heart. And I just felt as I wrote the book that this was a way in, a way of engaging with people, because life can be great. Even when life is challenging, life is good, and there are lots of things to be grateful for. I'd like to just share a story with you, if I may, about belief and how we self-limit. You see, I think disability is a metaphor for life. I was on a course, 10,000 people on the course, and part of the course was to do the fire walk. Now, at that time, I could stagger a few steps with help. I can walk somewhat better now as I've got an internal spinal stimulator. And in the morning of the course, they had been talking about a program that was going to take place in California. And I dismissed it because I thought, well, I didn't have a travel electric wheelchair in those days. How would I manage? You know, how would I manage on my own in a different country in a manual wheelchair? And I completely dismissed it. So it came to the fire walk, and for the listeners who are not familiar with that, that's when you walk over hot coals in bare feet, and if you're in the right mindset, your feet don't get burnt. And I was absolutely thrilled to walk with some help, to walk across hot coals without my feet getting burnt. And when I sat back in my wheelchair and I looked at the next person who was doing the walk, they were a double amputee. And they tipped themselves onto their hands and they walked across hot coals on their hands. And in that moment, I was humbled, and it really challenged my view of what I could do. I booked my ticket, I booked my flight. Since then, I've been out there. I've been around the world. I've speaking, studying, and for pleasure. And I am incredibly grateful to that guy who I have no idea who he is, but he changed my life. And because I've shared that story, I know from the feedback I've got, he's actually challenged other people's limiting beliefs about what they're capable of too.
Well, I know that you started Thrive Together Tribe.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of interesting. So how could people find out more about that?
If they go to the website, which is the usual https://, it's genuinely, then a hyphen, little dash, and then the word you.com. So genuinely-u.com. And they'll find all of the details on there. And if they're interested in the leadership program, that's enlightenedleadership.co.
Okay, that's great. So what would you say is the biggest hurdle that you overcame? Was it being in the wheelchair? Is it having the surgeries? Is it the obstacles you might have found in going into your own business? What exactly would you say is the biggest hurdle you overcame?
I think probably the second time that I found myself wheelchair bound again, having taken 18 months after the first failed back surgery to walk to the end of my very little garden, to find myself this time completely wheelchair bound. And the doctors were not particularly hopeful that I would walk again. And it seemed so much more difficult the second time round. And that's when I think having an attitude which was, let's look at what I can do. Let's look at what my skill set is. And the resilience that I developed there has helped me with set up my business. And when the recession came, helped me reinvent my business and has helped me develop the Genuinely You stuff.
So what advice would you offer our listeners so they can live a life of regret-free living?
I think the first thing is to recognize that you are the creator of your life story. You take yourself into every second of every day, from the moment you're born till the moment you'll die. And ultimately, it's your choice whether you choose to be the victim within your life story or the hero. And I would say to you, every choice you make, everything you do is a choice, and every choice you make has consequences. And I would say, if you want to thrive, you want to do well, then you need to be very mindful that getting into victim mode keeps you stuck. And that actually you don't have to be a victim to anything unless you choose to be. And once you take radical responsibility for yourself, the way in which you operate within the world, then life has a very different feel to it. No one can make you unhappy unless you choose to let them. Nobody can put you down unless you choose to let them.
Well, that's very true. I mean, you're absolutely 100% correct. So when you were talking about considering being wheelchair bound a gift, you talk about the gift of your disability. How was that? Share with us how being wheelchair bound was a gift.
Well, I think in the moment, moment by moment, there are plenty of times that it didn't feel like a gift, I have to say.
I am sure that's true.
A great sense of humour was a huge advantage, I think. But I think when I look at what I created within the school and now have used with many organisations and hundreds of people, what I recognise is that there was a huge gift. The old saying that necessity is the mother of invention. I had to create a way of being that was different to how I think I would have been if I'd been able-bodied. So let me explain that a little more. I couldn't physically get into my classrooms. Even if I could get through the door, there was not enough space to get round the rooms in order, because of the desks and the children and so on. So I had to find a way of operating with my staff, my pupils, my parents, in a way where I had to generate within them the desire and the capacity to take responsibility for themselves, to learn, if you like, to make informed choices based on being aware and helping them feel empowered, helping them to step into their genuine power. And I recognise that if I had been able-bodied, I probably would not have found this unique way of developing people because I wouldn't have needed it. I'd have done something different. I'd like to think it would have been so powerful, but I suspect that I would have been much less likely to create this sense of possibility where people were defining their own future. And that's because, I would have, I think, been more likely to try and manage them in a different way. As it was, what I created was self-organising, self-actualising teams where people thought for themselves, where they were generous to one another in terms of helping everybody learn, and that they developed huge levels of self-belief and confidence, which was far-reaching. It's not just in terms of their professional life, but their personal lives. And it's the techniques and the approaches that I've since developed even further and refined. But they all started because I simply could not get into the classrooms, and if I wanted the school to do well, and I was determined that my disability wasn't going to limit the capacity of the school to do well, that necessity meant that I had to think creatively. I had to do things in a very different way, and it's proved to be incredibly successful. And so, yes, it was a huge gift, although in the moment there were many times when it didn't feel like a gift. It felt quite the opposite.
Oh, I'm sure that's true, but they say, for example, people who are blind, their hearing is so much better developed, and people who are deaf, their eyesight, their acknowledgement of what's going on around them is so much more developed. So if you do have that positive attitude, you figure out a way to take what has happened to you and make it better. But I know that you have a significant mission in life.
Yes.
What is it, and why is it so important to you?
My mission is to positively impact on 1 million people in the next 5 years. And to do that through working with individuals, but particularly around leading within the family, leading within the community, leading within organizations. Because I believe, just like dropping a pebble in the water, if you're looking at leadership, the ripples will spread out. So helping one person to develop enlightened leadership, they in turn will impact on many. And I look at the way the world is going, and I believe that we are at a time in our evolution, humans, where we need a paradigm shift. At the moment, we are surrounded by division, fear, hatred, toxic ways of being. Our leaders, wherever you look, there is a lack of integrity and truth. And I believe that my mission in life, my purpose, is to help people from the ground up start a movement to change things for the better. Because if we don't do it, we're going to destroy one another, and we're going to destroy the planet. And so in my small way, I want to start something which will gather momentum and will then gather with other people who have a similar purpose in life, so that we can start a sea change, and that we'll start it from the bottom up.
So how can people find, where can they go to get more information on you, on your books, on what you do, your movement? Where can they go?
Well, as I said, the two places to go are the website, which is genuinely-u.com. That's genuinely dash and the word u.com, or enlightenedleadership.co. So genuinely-u.com and enlightenedleadership.co, and they'll find all of the information. They can email me. They'll also find me on the Genuinely You Facebook group. People can join the group there, and there's lots of information that comes through the Facebook group, or through LinkedIn. I'm in LinkedIn under Gina Gardiner Associates, which is my original business, and they can find me there. And there's an Enlightened Leadership group as part of LinkedIn. If you are someone who believes that you'd like to help make a difference in terms of the quality of leadership, then come and join the Genuinely You leadership group through LinkedIn.
I think this is fabulous, Gina. The fact that one of the most difficult surgeries you can ever go through is back surgery. And the fact that you went through it twice and you were confined to the wheelchair. Are you mobile now?
My mobility is the best it's been since 1996. And I don't use the wheelchair in the house or garden. I can walk short distances, but I still need to use a wheelchair if I go into town or I go traveling. My physical energy is quite limited, so I have to conserve my energy. And so if I'm going off into town, then I'll still use the wheelchair.
Well, I think you're an amazing woman, and I think what you're doing as your mission is also amazing. I think the fact that you are able to create these leadership programs are fabulous. I think the fact that you've got this Thrive Together tribe is outstanding. And, it's you're also giving a gift. You're giving a 7-day happiness challenge. And so where you go to get that, folks, is you go to genuinely-u.com/happiness. And for those of you out there who are thinking and feeling sorry for yourself, there's no better place to go than to Gina's site. I mean, she has been through the mill and has come out the other side. And there's no reason for anybody to not feel happy when you talk to someone like Gina. So take the 7-day happiness challenge. http://genuinely-u.com/happiness. Anything else, Gina, that we haven't mentioned? We've got about 30 seconds left.
I would say to people, don't be a victim, take some action. And if the least that you do is to go and explore the website, there's loads of free resources there. If you're in a position of leadership, ask yourself, are you an enlightened leader? And if you're not, or if you want to be an even better leader, then join us on the Enlightened Leadership Program. And you can find it genuinely-u.com and enlightenedleadership.co. Love to see you there.
Thanks so much for being with us, Gina.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Hi, this is Dr. Gayle, and I wanted you to know I have a whole bunch of other things to offer you. If you go to spunkyoldbroad.com, you will see an array of SOB stuff for sale and all our latest products and additions. If you're interested in getting on TV, I have a brand new course, Get on TV. And if you want to start your own business, you'll want my SOB Guide to Business Success. I know you'll love them all. I guarantee it. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. I choose my guests carefully, so if you have someone you'd like me to interview, please drop me a line at gaylecarson13@gmail.com. In the meantime, check out my intro program, Mindset Matters, at www.sobmindset.com. See you next week.